Hi, a very warm welcome and good evening, everyone. We have today Miss Simran Brijwani as our host for today's session. She is a counseling psychologist and psychotherapist with 4+ years of experience supporting adolescents and adults. She holds a master's in applied psychology from a University of Mumbai and is founder and psychologist at Raha Psychotherapy. Her work focuses on areas including anxiety, grief, trauma, life transitions, relationships, and work and academic stress. Without making our audience waiting further, I would like to make request to Simran. Please take over further.
Thank you so much for such a warm welcome. Thank you, everyone, for joining in on a Thursday afternoon. I understand this might not necessarily be a time ideal where most of us feel most present, but I really appreciate you being here. Please allow me a second so I can share my screen and we can get started. Could you give me a thumbs up to let me know if you can see my screen and the presentation? Okay, great. All right. So today, what we're going to do is we're going to be talking about a topic that a lot of us may actually relate with or have experienced personally, but sometimes it can be really hard to articulate our experience, that sense of people in our lives feeling that we have our life together, but deep down, when we think about it, we know it's further away from the truth, right? Um, we feel it intimately, but it's really hard to have a conversation with someone else about because there's an immense fear of being found out. So that's what we look at. Before we get started, I just want to say that it's possible that we're going to look at ways in which self doubt shows up, which may not always resonate with each one of you. So it's okay to take what resonates and to let go of what doesn't. We don't have to agree with everything, right? Because everybody's lived experience of self doubt can be very different. So we'll just try to be curious about things that we don't resonate with, also. Would that be okay? Okay. Um, So, since this is a public forum and it's possible that a lot of you know each other at work or otherwise, or may come across someone that you're familiar with, it's okay to ask only those questions that you are comfortable with others knowing about you or you having asked in the chat box. So, please protect your privacy because everybody would have access to everything, right? So, just that. Okay. So, here's a quick skeleton of what you can expect from today's conversation. We will be looking at how self doubt shows up, ways in which it can show up for different people, ways in which it can impact us, things that it can also bring us as strengths. Lastly, we'll also look at what are some ways in which we could navigate our way through self doubt. um, Now, here is where I would come with a disclaimer that we're talking about self confidence and self doubt, something that has taken shape over a lot of years, right? So, I just want to say that it's not going to happen such that after an hour we may automatically become someone who's very confident. But what may happen is we may become hopefully more and more aware about what shakes our confidence, what brings up a lot of doubt. So it can be the starting point of a journey. It may not be that I would give you three directions and they would help feel completely confident, right? So, but that can be a starting point. So I encourage you to use this space as a place to reflect on what your journey with self doubt has been. So, lastly, we will also discuss if there are things that you want to ask, if things that there are things that you would be curious about, then we would make some space for the Q&A at the end. Okay. Um, Now, before we move ahead and talk about self-doubt, imposter, I have put together a bingo. It has some of the ways in which I've seen self-doubt to show up for people. All of it may not resonate with you, but I would love for you to take a few minutes and maybe also let me know how many of these feel very familiar, anywhere between a scale of 0 to 9, and you could drop it in the chat. Yeah, some of you don't quite relate with it. What about the rest of you? Hmm. So someone says they resonate with five of each. Hmm. Someone's also over prepared for something unnecessarily. Someone's saying six, seven. Someone's also saying five. I see a lot of fives and sevens. There's also eight. Hmm. Someone's also saying nine. There's three as well. So there's a somewhere between three and four. Six. We have another three. Another three. Yeah. Yeah. So that seem to be some of you who resonate a lot, and some of them who don't fully, right? Okay. And some of us are in the middle. Okay. Yeah. So overall, I see that we have all kinds of scores coming in. There are some at the very beginning, some in ones and threes, some at eights, nines, some in six to eight as well. Okay, okay. Are there any more of you who are yet to answer? Okay. So, if you will look through each of these quadrants, while the examples are different from one another, they all point together towards a similar pattern of self doubt, of having difficulty feeling confident about something you know, having a lot of doubt about whether or not you know that particular skill or ability, right? These are all patterns, ways in which self doubt presents itself. Um, Today we're looking at a very particular type of self doubt, right? It's the kind where we feel that we don't know enough and that people around us are going to find that out, right? So, as you can see the definition also, there are feelings of doubt about whether or not we are competent at work, whether or not we belong, whether or not we are legitimate as an employee, whether or not our skill set and our abilities, whether they are legitimate. But the fun thing or the interesting thing about this is that we feel all of these feelings of doubt, even when there is very clear cut evidence that we are capable, that we are competent. We've had past track records that show that we have certain skills and abilities that have brought us where we are, right? For instance, if you've ever given a presentation and midway through giving a presentation, you've noticed that you're fumbling a lot, right? And you're thinking to yourself that, okay, I think everybody's gonna think that I don't know what I'm talking about. But then towards the end of the presentation, you've realized that, okay, there are a lot of people who actually liked what I presented. They found things that they really appreciate about it, that I got a lot of praise about it. So that can leave us in a fix because our experience of the presentation was that it didn't go well, but theirs was that it went really well. So it can leave us with a split. Um, so the question is not whether or not objectively we have the skills, abilities, whether or not we are competent, but rather here the question arises, what makes it difficult for us to believe that we are competent? Um, and so the question is about what makes it difficult to believe that we do have the skills, we do have the abilities, right? Um, Something that's also important to know is that uh, often, whenever we talk about imposter, we usually hear the phenomena as imposter syndrome, right? Um, Whenever we attach the word syndrome to something, it automatically sounds like it's something wrong with the person, that it's some sort of diagnosis, even though it's not. Feeling doubtful, having the feeling of an imposter, it's a very natural, very valid response to when you are picking up to learn a new skill and you've not quite mastered it yet. It's a very natural response to a transition you're still getting used to. It's a very natural response to when someone has very high expectations of you. And I mean, very interestingly, the term imposter also came in when there were researchers studying women who were expected very highly from at work, right? So, research says that over 70% of people who are working in companies have experienced this at some point of time in life. And this should tell us that it's very normal, a very valid experience to have. Um, there was this researcher called Valerie Young who studied imposter phenomena across many years. And then she realized that the feelings of doubt show up in certain very recurring patterns, right? People experience in very similar patterns. And so her research listed and categorized 5 patterns. Now, know that these are not diagnostic categories, these are just ways to make learning simpler for us. Some of you are raising hands. I would really appreciate if you could leave the questions for the Q&A part of the conversation so that we can get to the end of the slides. If you do feel like it's difficult to move past before that, then you could also drop a message in the chat box and I can try to answer it. Okay. All right, so we will look at what these types are. The first is the perfectionist. Now, typically, this is someone who, an example of it would be someone who identifies as a grammar Nazi, that who reviews every email 10 times, start to end, looking for things that could be wrong in it before they send the email out, right? So there's an urge to check that thing recurrently before sending it across. There is now perfectionist also takes a very protective space where the person is scared of sending an email across with a mistake because they believe that it's not okay to make a mistake. That if they make a mistake and it's found out, then someone else on the other side is going to think they're not good enough. They don't know what they're doing. They're going to think it's dumb and silly. The other way in which it shows up is through that of an expert. Now, the expert has an immense fear of asking a lot of questions and not knowing. I wonder if any of you have experienced being in a place where you really wanted to ask a question, but you've thought to yourself that, but it sounds very dumb. It sounds like a very silly question to ask, right? So, here the belief is that I am already supposed to know this by now. I should have known better. These are things that the expert experiences. There's an immense pressure to know everything. Um, the third is the soloist. Now, this is typically someone who um, is quite hyper independent. This could one way in which it shows up is hyper independence, where the person has difficulty delegating the tasks because they believe that it'll be more convenient, it'll be faster if they do it themselves, right? So it's difficult to trust people on the team. And it feels like if I ask others to help, If I ask others to do something on my behalf, then maybe it will be perceived that I don't know or I can't do that particular task. The next is a natural genius. Now, this is just pun intended, right? Uh, this person may have particular understanding or belief that I should know everything by the virtue of me being in this role. And if I was really good at what I was doing, then why am I struggling? So there's a particular belief that people who are good at their job, people who are good employees, great employees, are confident people, they know everything. That for them, everything should come effortlessly, right? That they shouldn't have to put in a lot of effort, which is why a lot of people find it really shameful to be seen trying. Whether it's on social media, whether it's at work, whether it's in a presentation, there's an immense pressure of being found out while someone's learning something, while they're struggling. The last one is the superhuman. So, for this particular, belief, an individual has an immense pressure or desire to prove that they deserve to be on that team. Um, they don't feel that it's good enough that they are put on the team, that they must have some skill or ability that they're brought into that team. There's a lot of pressure to prove themselves. One way in which it can show up is an individual can feel a lot of pressure to do everything by themselves, have a pressure to learn multiple things across a department. Now, one way in which it could also show up at work could be that this person may learn things across many avenues rather than sticking to the avenue that they are working in. We'll take a look at chat briefly to see if, okay, some of you are resonating with the first, second, and fourth. Interestingly, it's possible to relate with more than one ways in which imposter shows up across different settings. So it's possible that one experiences perfectionism in an area, but is an expert in another, and is a soloist in the third one. Okay. Um, Now we'll go to an exercise. As you may see, there are a lot of hopefully familiar characters from movies in it. What I would love for you to identify first, before you answer the question on the slide, is which character do you think resonates with, if I go back, the perfectionist, someone who checks things one more time.
Someone is complaining that voice is gone, not able to hear. Nothing. Her voice is, I think, audible. Please check your network at your end, please. Once. I think
Thank you.
everyone is able to listen now. Please give a thumbs up if you're able to listen. Okay. So
Yeah.
I think it's problem at your end. Please check at once.
Okay. Thank you so much. Hmm. Okay. So someone said Chatur in the chat. Who do you think Chatur resonates with from these categories? So the idea is not to name the characters, it's the type. So when you look at Chatur, who do you think Chatur might be from these? Okay, someone saying he could be a perfectionist or an expert. Huh. Someone saying could be a perfectionist, superhuman. Okay, okay. Um, so uh Chatur is naturally someone who can be put in multiple categories, but he does have this pressure that I should know this by now. How do I not know it? Right? So it could be a natural genius as well. Uh, he could also be the expert, and he could also very well be the perfectionist. What about when you look at Ved? Someone saying the soloist. So what about when you look at Ved from Tamasha, the Ranveer Kapoor photo? I can go back. Okay. So some of you may not have seen the movie, which is completely okay. We can go to another character. Any other characters that seem familiar? What you can do is you could also randomly answer by putting in the character and who you think they might be. And that's okay too. Okay, no worries. Mhm. What about others? Yes, I can move to the previous slide. Someone saying Kareena Kapoor as the perfectionist, you're right, because there's a lot of traits in ensuring that everything's right. Someone saying Nana is the superhuman, you're right again. There could be a lot of pressure to prove that they're good across a lot of departments. Someone else is saying Priyanka to be the soloist. You're right again. There's a lot of pressure to do everything by herself without asking for a lot of help. Someone saying number five, Deepika. Uh, yeah, there can be a lot of pressure again. Someone saying Priyanka, the superhuman, Deepika, the natural genius. Yeah, the thing is, interestingly, right? All these characters resonate with different ways in which imposter shows up. Pooh can very easily be categorized as the perfectionist. Ved can be someone who's a soloist. Priyanka can also be a soloist. Um, at the same time, Naina can also be someone who can identify as a superhuman. Now, what I want to bring your attention to is that like through these characters, we're not trying to talk about, or we're not trying to reduce these characters to a particular personality type and the different ways in which imposter shows up. It's also not a personality flaw or a personality type. Rather, these are all patterns, right? These are ways in which we try to manage feelings of discomfort that show up when there is a lot of internal self doubt, right? So these are not invitations to diagnose yourself. Rather, these are ways in which we manage our self doubt. And the way we manage our self doubt can also have a lot of useful information to share with us. We'll see how. So, if you notice, we have a pressure to do something perfectly. We may check a draft over and over and over again because there's an immense fear of failure. We don't want to make a mistake. When we are over functioning at work, when we are extending our deadlines, we are allowing someone to cross our boundaries, we may also fear them rejecting us. They may them seeing us in a very negative light. So we want to be someone who is present for everyone. The person who experiences the expert stance, they may feel out of control every time they don't know something, right? There can be also a lot of pressure to not like the pressure to be liked when you are in a workplace and there are hierarchies. We all want to feel good, right? We want to be seen favorably with like by people around us. So even that is a coping strategy. Over preparing again is also a similar one where we don't want to fail. So these are all desperate ways in which we try not to fail. But these get repeated, like we repeatedly try to do things perfectly because these are also ways in which sometimes we may be rewarded. Someone who does things perfectly often sometimes produces a lot of high quality work. Someone who keeps extending their boundaries, they are perceived to be someone everybody can depend on. Someone who is an expert or over prepares, they may not only feel more prepared and knowledgeable, but they're also rewarded for knowing everything, which can later create a lot of burden when they don't know something. Um, when we people please, we say yes to everything. It's possible that people around think we are agreeable, we are easy to work with, and so they may like each other, and we all want to feel good about ourselves at the end of the day. Um, Now, what's also important to look at is self doubt is also connected with, like, it's also a very natural response to learning something new, right? As I said earlier. But is it possible that feeling doubtful about yourself and being incompetent, whether they have to be the same? Sometimes we can feel that we are incompetent, but we may not necessarily be. For example, when we are learning something new, right? We are in this place. We're in a place of unconscious incompetence. When this is usually when we are working and we realize that a certain skill is required for us to do a particular task well, but we don't know how to do it and whether we are good at it or not. So sometimes we feel like we're not performing very well, but we also don't know what we do, right? And this can make us feel doubtful of ourselves. But gradually, as we learn more about a particular task at work, we learn, we come into the second quadrant, which is a conscious incompetence quadrant, which is where we become aware that XYZ are skills and abilities that are needed for me to do my job well, but there is awareness that I'm not yet good with it. This is usually also something that shows up when you are starting to learn something new, whether it's swimming, driving, a particular new course that helps you upskill at work. You start, but it doesn't, starting doesn't feel as rewarding because you're at every stage reminded that you're not doing it well. And this can also increase our self doubt. The next place that we usually come to is the conscious competence place, where it's been some time since we've started a particular course. We're starting to understand it a little bit. We are starting to learn more about it, but we are still finding it difficult to apply it at work or maybe tweak it to the situation that we are in. That can also increase a lot of doubt because it can remind us that we're not good at what we're doing. But it's a very natural process and a gradual process of learning where we pick up something and we may need to practice that skill a lot for us to be good at it. So here we are able to use the skill, but it's very effortful. Maybe we need to refer to a lot of things before we use it properly. Um, the last place in this quadrant is that there is an unconscious competence. Now, this is that part of learning something where you're now able to do it automatically. It doesn't take a lot of effort for you to perform that particular task or to use that skill or ability. The difference is between all of this, like the one thing that sets this apart is that when we are able to do something without expending a lot of effort, we stop noticing that we've picked up a skill and it becomes just any other thing that we've been doing all this while. So this is one place where a lot of our hard work can get disregarded because it can feel like it's just something that we do and it's very natural. So we discount all the effort that goes in. And so you may have heard some people saying when you praise them, they may say that, but this is not something that's a big thing. Anybody could have done that, because it doesn't take a lot of visible effort to do it. Yeah. Um, we shall go back to something different. So I have a question for you, and I would love for you to use the chat, engage within the chat. So let's say your manager sends you a message outside of work or within your working hours. Um, hey, do you have a few minutes to chat tomorrow? And they've not mentioned the context, they've not said anything, but they've just sent a message. And maybe they're not used to doing that. So it's new, it's unfamiliar that they would send a message outside. what would that bring up for you? Generally, I mean, it doesn't just have to be a manager, but it can be anyone. Hmm. A lot of you are saying C. Some of you are also saying D. Mostly A and B. Sometimes D. Yeah, yeah. Some of you fear that they may be unhappy with your work, and some of you feel that it could be anything. You don't have the information yet. Some are saying depends on the situation. The first thing that came to mind in the morning after waking up, it's D. Okay. Depending on the situation, it's A or D. Hmm. A lot of you are saying A. Some of you are saying it depends on the manager. Some of you are saying it's A. Okay, that's another A. Okay, that's another A. Hmm. So, okay, there's also C and there's A's. Depends on the manager's day. Okay. Some are saying A or C. Should we ask upfront to avoid anxiety? Ideally, it would help. Someone saying C. Okay. All right. So I am taking that there's no particular consensus here. Some of you resonate with A, some resonate with C, some are saying D, and some of you feel it depends on the manager and their day, right? Okay. So I think here is where it would be important to say that those of you who said that we should probably that we don't know yet, it could be anything, could be the right answer. Why? Because them saying that something has come up and they want to talk may not always mean, it doesn't prove whether it's a positive thing or it's a negative thing. But our mind naturally looks for something that is negative because uh, it's a survival instinct, right? We can afford to miss a positive because then we can still go back. But if it's a negative, if it's a news like a layoff, something that has been happening to a lot of people, uh, then it could threaten survival. We all are dependent on our jobs for survival, right? But um, even if the first natural instinct is that they think, I'm not doing my job well, it's a thought, right? It's not a fact. Now, here's the thing, thoughts are our perspectives, right? I could look at the sky and feel it's light blue. I could look at the sky and say that it's darker shade of blue. There could be a third person who could find a purple or a violet or somewhere in the middle. But it's their perspective that naturally doesn't make it the truth, right? That doesn't make it the fact. A fact is something that has evidence. Right now, when we look at the message, we seem to have no evidence that the managers mentioned something good or bad, right? So, a thought that something might be wrong may not be an evidence that something is definitely wrong. So, that puts us to a question, what do I actually know about the message as of now? Maybe as of now, I just know that they have um, sent me a message about wanting to have a conversation. I don't know yet whether it could be a promotion or whether it could be a layoff, or whether it could be nothing of these two. Maybe it's just an everyday conversation. Maybe they heard about something. Maybe they want to go out. Maybe they just want to have a conversation about something at work. Okay. Um, the next question now. I have a second question for you. up on the screen. And so let's say you present something in a meeting and you stumbled over one answer. Let's say someone else gives a very polished response. They don't fumble, they have all the facts, they are able to articulate, and it leaves you thinking that I clearly don't know enough. What would be the next thing that you would want to know in that conversation? Hmm. So some of you are saying D, some of you are saying A. You would want to know what you did well, what you didn't do well. Some of you may want to know what feedback you actually receive. B, maybe other person knows more than me. It's okay. No comparison. Okay. So some of you are saying A and C. So some of you might want to know, what do people usually come to me most for? Hmm, again, depends on who are awake in the meeting. Yeah, I'm sure that depends. Okay. Some of you are saying A. Some of you are saying B. How much of this is comparison? This is what you would ask yourself. Yeah. Some of you are saying D. Some are saying B. Some are saying A. Okay. Some of you are also saying A. You would try to get some feedback. You would want to see what you did right and what you didn't. Hmm. So, can we say that I'm seeing a lot of A's and D's? Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Someone's saying C. So, you would think about, what do people usually come to you for? Yeah. Someone's at D's and C's. Okay. Okay. And my brain just held a full performance review without consulting me. Possible reasons, take. Okay. See, the idea is that you could give a presentation, you could have a lot of pauses, you could have fumbled as many times as possible, you might have missed something really important, right? Having said that, one moment of fumble, one miss from a slide, it can feel uncomfortable to us internally because our mind is really alert when we are being watched by so many people around us. Having said that, one moment of discomfort is not a complete assessment of your competence, right? It's not all or nothing, it's not black and white. It doesn't mean that if you don't know one answer, that means that you don't know anything. It just means that you don't know that one answer or those two answers, right? Um, So we'll try to get to the most important part of why we are here, which is what to do about it, right? Um, I go back to my initial most reminder first. Um, Self-confidence is very systemic in nature. Now, what do I mean by that? Our self-confidence doesn't independently depend on how we feel about ourselves alone. It depends on what people around us who are important to us, not so important to us, feel about us. It depends on our access to support and resources. It depends on how um, you've been treated by your family, your friends, your community, colleagues at work, people in authority at work, people that you like, dislike, whether or not you've been given opportunities and resources that are required for you to succeed, whether you've had people who've been supportive, who've been critical. All of these things really impact whether or not you feel confident and how much confident you feel. Um, so it's impossible for us to master self confidence in a 1 hour workshop, but it's definitely possible to get a head start on starting your journey towards confidence. So we'll talk about a few ways in which we could do that. Um, the first things first, as you may have seen that I might have reiterated in most of my slides, is it's really important for us to separate feelings from facts. We can feel like an imposter without being one. We can feel that I'm not good enough, but that is not an evidence that you are not good enough. It's just a feeling. Its job is to come give you information that right now you don't feel good about yourself. Right? It's not an evidence that you are not good enough. The next is it's important to look at mistakes as very useful data, as useful information. Um, and they are a part of learning, right? We may not know everything. So it's okay to tell a manager, a subordinate, a colleague, someone junior in a position as well that you don't know about that thing yet, and you will read up and get back about it, right? It's okay if your junior knows that my manager or subordinate doesn't know everything, but they should know that they are sincere enough to get back to me about it. Um, the other is if you resonate with someone who's a soloist, then it's okay to let that soloist part in you take a back seat, because when we ask for help, when we delegate, when we recognize that these are my strengths and these are things that I'm not very good at, and we hand it over to another person in the team, it is strategic collaboration. Ultimately, we should care about the task and whether or not it's being done at the desired standard. So when we ask for help, it actually empowers the entire team. It helps and benefits the entire team. The other is one of the ways in which we can make space for self confidence is I'm sure we've all received some or the other compliments. We've read about certain quotes and reminders. We've had some or the other achievements in life, no matter how tiny appearing or large. Um, and we've all had things that we've done well. So it's really important to be reminded of them. One of the ways in which you could do it as a folder in your phone galleries or an Instagram save folder or a jar on your desk, which has perhaps chits where you've listed all the things that you feel proud of, things that have happened to you, things that very objectively people have complimented you on. It's okay if you don't feel the compliments are genuine. It's okay if you feel that you don't fully agree with the compliment you've received. But the fact that you've been given it can be a good reminder to go back to. The other is to also be sincere with keeping promises that you make to yourself. If you've identified that you don't have the bandwidth for certain tasks, and you feel it's also possible to say a no without it backfiring in a very stringent manner at work or outside, it's okay to say no. It's okay to remind yourself that you don't need to always over prepare, and that it's okay to say that you don't know something and that you need more time with something. um, the last is very important, which is to set a 60 seconds rule before you conclude something. If you have a thought that, I don't even know this, I can't get one thing right, take a pause, take a step back, give yourself a minute or two, and then go back to that particular thought and challenge it. Look at whether there's any evidence that proves that you don't know anything at all, or do you not know that one thing that's coming up right now. Okay, so look for thoughts, look for evidences for and against it both. Um, Last but not the least, I just want to say that whatever stage of career you might be, whether you're a beginner, whether you're in an intermediate place, or whether you're a manager or an expert, please know that your confidence, how confidently you show up at work, how confidently you participate, may not necessarily mean whether or not you're competent. There are a lot of people who are not as confident but know their job very well. They may not be the first few people to raise a hand in a class in school, but that doesn't mean that they didn't know what the answer was. Maybe they just didn't feel confident to raise up their hand. Same thing at work as well, in different ways. It's possible that you're someone who's really experienced, but come across certain new concepts or things at work that you fully don't feel certain about, that you don't know about. Um, that is a sign that you are learning. When you don't know, that allows you to be curious. You can not know something, you can be learning something new, and you can still be capable of being someone who's a master at it or an expert at it. You don't need to be 100% confidence for you to be competent at work. That's the thing that I want to leave you all with. Um, Finally, I think a question that we can all take back is, what would I do if I didn't need to feel 100% confidence first? Uh, right? Uh, Open to questions now.
So Simran, should I read out for you question? Uh,
Uh, sure, just give me a second. Are they already there in the Q&A part of the...
yeah, so anyone has questions, so they can put up on chatbot or Q&A also.
Okay.
So at last, then Simran will answer those questions.
Yeah.
Okay, so Amrit Pal is asking why we are very confused while making our goal or career, because I am a teenager and I compare myself with everyone. So
Hmm.
at last I guilt myself, someone going ahead from me. I'm very good in studies while schooling, but in job profession I'm very low performer.
Hmm. Yeah. Okay. Um, Amrita, what would your question exactly be? I definitely understand where you're coming from, uh, but I'm not quite sure what you're looking for.
So basically, he's asking that why are we very confused while making our goal or career? While he was very good in studies, but
Hmm.
talking about his career profession, so he's very low performer. So
Hmm.
to take, the decisions on the behalf of career, maybe he get confused.
Right. See, now the thing is, we can be really good at something, but at the same time, we may not necessarily like that particular prospect of work or career. At the same time, often comparison arises when we feel something is missing in us, that we're not good at something that maybe people around us are. That's what can usually, bring in a lot of confusion and guilt as well. It's possible that you're really good at studies, but at the same time, being good at something doesn't necessarily mean you particularly enjoy that area, right?
Okay. So Ramesh asked, what if my lack of confidence does not stem from me, but in my lack of faith in others?
Mhm. It's possible, especially when we're in a systemic place where, let's say, we're a part of a team and everybody is responsible for different kind of things. Um, if it happens so that others are not showing up, then it's possible that I may not feel as confident of delivering that particular output that was dependent on an entire team and not me alone.
Okay. Vasant asked, Pramod asked why we get distracted more than we want to focus on something which is useful. Any tips for overcome this?
You mean any tips to overcome lack of concentration or doubt?
How do I stop my instinct from overriding my logical mind and assuming the worst?
Hmm. That's a really good question. Actually, it would help to think about what would be so whatever the worst fear is, it would like whatever the fear is, it will be helpful to take a moment, take a step back to think about what's the most likely outcome of whatever you fear will happen. What's the most likely outcome? What's the worst possible scenario? And what is the best possible scenario? Usually, when you start with putting together what the worst possible scenario is on one end, उसके complete opposite पे there is a best possible scenario of that situation. Usually, these are two extremes, right, of the same of the same line, which are very unlikely to happen because life doesn't work in extremes. So it's not black or white. So you may need to then think about what lies in the most center, the epicenter of the line, which is what's the most likely possible outcome. Yeah, usually it is a mix of the best and the worst possible scenario. So that is something you could do.
Okay. So next question is I have already wasted my golden years of my life not growing in career, personal life, and
Hmm.
even hampering my talents due to imposter syndrome. How long does it take to break this chain in life?
Hmm. Really good question. Um, it's not a very linear process. Is it possible to break away from imposter? Definitely, it's possible for the imposter voice, the self-doubting voice, to soften over time as you work on it. Um, but like I said, imposter feelings are a very normal and a valid response to any learning, any transition, any change, whenever you come across something that you don't know about, which is possible, right? It's possible that one transitions from school to college, not knowing how college can look like. It's possible that it looks not similar to what they thought, but it's also possible that college also brings new facets of life that maybe a person may have not imagined. So every time you come across something that you don't fully know about, it's possible that the imposter voice might come up, but as and when you, but if you're someone who works on managing um, self doubt, if you do, I mean, therapy can be one of the very good ways to work on self esteem because it's not a one size fits all, right? It's not one moment. So if you're someone who works on it actively, works on managing your relationship with yourself, then gradually the voice softens. It doesn't completely 100% go away because we're always going to come across something that we don't know about, that we are also still learning.
Okay. Next question is what if the fear of being incompetent is like a self-fulfilling prophecy?
Hmm, can you maybe let me know a little more about what you mean by that. Like, I understand the meaning of the question, but like, what are you exactly looking to know? It can be a self-fulfilling prophecy. In some ways, it depends on the context, actually.
Okay, he replied, I feel afraid that I will fail a test. I don't study under a assumption that I will fail anyway. Actually, end up failing the test due to lack of preparation is equal to prediction proven right.
You are right. If you mean it that way, then you are right. It is possible because when we already operate from the place that we're not gonna get it right, what also happens is along with our thoughts that I have a thought that I might not get it right, it also my thought also changes my feelings. I may feel demotivated. Now, how I think and how I feel will also naturally impact how I show up. So it's possible, like you said, that if I already think that I might not get this right, I might stop putting in efforts. And eventually, I might end up not getting it right. And that may not be an evidence that I could never get it right. It was an evidence that I acted on this thought. So it's possible.
Okay. So now next question is his personal life related. That I am going through a divorce. Also, I got laid off in March 2026. Luckily,
Hmm.
I could land this job last month because of my personal life. I am unable to focus, low on confidence, overthinking, and feeling lonely. Could you please help me with how can I regain my focus in life?
Um, Firstly, thank you for sharing that. Um, I would recommend, if it's possible for you to access some individual support with a therapist or a counselor, I think I would highly recommend it. Why? Because it could really help to have someone that you could talk these things through. It's really difficult to, give an answer that would be very personalized because I don't know a lot about your life and how things have been going for you. I think it would be unfair to give an answer to that in a public forum. But I do feel it you could really benefit from support. Like it's usually nice, very empowering to have someone be there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Next question is why can't I feel confident? When I was learning by myself, I felt confident, but learning from my co-workers put me in a way that I don't know anything, and they particularly make me feel that I don't know anything. It pulls down my confidence.
Hmm. Thank you for sharing that. It makes sense that it really pulls down your confidence when, again, it also depends how and in how a piece of information is conveyed to us. Um, there's a thin line between feedback and criticism. Like if someone's being really constructive about it, if they're telling you that you could really benefit from knowing this a little more, it would help you with your job, then maybe it's easier to receive it than when someone really labels you and criticizes the whole of you, saying that you can't even get this one thing right. So it really depends on how something is also communicated, which takes me back to my initial point, which is that confidence is not built in isolation. So people around us, how they treat us, also really matters. And whether like if they treat us well, it adds on to our confidence. When they don't, it takes away.
Yeah. How can someone overcome overthinking after failure and rebuild the confidence to start trying again?
Hmm. I think that would take me back to, I mean, I know it's easier said than done. Like I said, just give a disclaimer before answering a lot of your questions that they seem to be coming from a really personal context. uh, what I'm recommending may feel, more generic. It may not apply to all of, like, it may not be the only thing that you may need to do. So I would highly, if you do feel that it's really impacting how you feel in a day-to-day basis, if it's impacting your work, if it impacts your functioning, it could always help to take help. Talk to someone that you feel comfortable with, reach out to a therapist or a mental health professional that you feel you could have an open dialogue with about the whole of it. Having said that, on the crux, it would help to remind yourself that it's okay to make mistakes, um, as long as you're learning from it and they don't mean evidence that you can never get things right.
Okay. I always doubt myself even when I am 100% prepared and understand the concept well, which leads to overthinking. Often feel like others are more talented than I am. How can I overcome this?
I think I would take you back to the last slide where I've mentioned about um, how I think the whole purpose of discussing the imposter feelings is that feeling like an imposter is not about us lacking a particular skill or an ability, right? It, it has nothing to do with the skills and abilities, this part of self doubt. Um, because the fact that you may have reached wherever you are at is good enough evidence, is good enough testimony that you do have those skills and abilities. Having said that, imposter is all about um, not being able to believe that you do. Ways to work with it. Again, these are ways in which um, we may protect ourselves. Like if the imposter part of us is loud, we may keep taking whether to do things perfectly, over preparing as desperate attempts to not fail. But what I'm trying to reiterate that is that it's okay to fail. Um, you may still need to explore your relationship with, it could help to explore your relationship with failure, feedback, uh, and learning as well. The fact that we're learning something new means that we are going to fail at some point of time. And it shouldn't, stop us from pursuing that path ahead.
Okay. So I hope we have covered all the questions, and Simran has answered their questions very well. So thank you so much, Simran, for being here on the behalf of IMT Care and from all the participants. And thank you to all the participants for being so engaging and so interactive and putting in your questions in Q&A. Yeah.
Okay.
So thank you so much to all of you
Thank
and
you so much, everyone, for
have a nice
having me. Thank you, IMT Cares, as well, for having me here. It was really nice to engage with all of you. And if you have any questions, if there's anything you would want to reach out with, have a query about, feel free to reach out. There's a QR on the slide. I have put together some resources that could come in handy if you're wanting to learn a little more about managing imposter or learning more about it in general. Please feel free to take a screenshot and then you could scan the QR and access the resource. Okay.
Okay, thank you.